In just 24 hours, two major American highways separated by more than 1,000 miles were shut down by the same brutal winter system. In Colorado, Interstate 70 through Glenwood Canyon turned from a scenic mountain drive into a frozen trap. In Michigan, Interstate 94 near Hartford became the scene of a deadly pileup as a lake-effect snowband slammed into the highway. Together, these crashes showed how quickly whiteouts and black ice can turn ordinary traffic into a disaster zone. Late Sunday morning in Colorado, drivers crossing the Rockies had little warning of what was coming. A fast-moving winter cell swept into Glenwood Canyon, darkening the sky and blasting the roadway with swirling snow. Visibility dropped to just a few hundred feet in minutes, and what looked like a simple wet surface turned into a sheet of invisible black ice. Around 11:28 a.m., the first crash erupted near mile marker 130 on westbound I-70. One vehicle lost traction, slid sideways, and blocked the lane. The next driver never saw it in time. Within seconds, a chain reaction of collisions began as cars, SUVs, and trucks slammed into each other on the slick pavement. Airbags detonated, glass shattered, and a line of vehicles twisted together across the canyon floor. 15 minutes later, the opposite side of the interstate suffered a second major crash near milepost 119. This time, around 30 vehicles, including multiple commercial trucks, were involved. Drivers tried to brake but found their tires gliding helplessly over polished ice. Whiteout conditions hid the wreckage until they were almost on top of it, triggering another burst of secondary impacts. Colorado authorities quickly shut down the 70 between exit 133 and exit 114, freezing traffic in both directions for miles. Families sat inside idling cars to stay warm. Truckers lined the shoulders waiting for any update. Inside the canyon, rescuers moved from vehicle to vehicle, fighting snow, wind, and ice just to reach the injured. Tow trucks had to chain up to enter the crash zone, creeping forward on roads that felt like glass. Snowplows followed close behind, spreading sand and chemicals to cut through the ice so firefighters and medics could work safely. Crews pried open jammed doors, checked every car, and guided drivers to warming areas as the storm continued to dump snow on the wreckage. Despite the violence of both pileups, Colorado's outcome was called a miracle. Nearly 50 vehicles were damaged or destroyed, yet no one was killed. Dozens were treated for injuries and hypothermia, but every person trapped in the canyon was eventually pulled out alive. For troopers and firefighters on scene, it was a rare case where the scale of the crash did not match the usual human toll. But while Colorado was still clearing I-70, the same storm system was already intensifying over the Great Lakes. By Monday afternoon, southwest Michigan was under a powerful lake-effect snowband, the kind of narrow but intense storm that can drop visibility to near zero in seconds. Interstate 94 near Hartford, at exit 46, lay directly in its path. At about 1:15 p.m., traffic on I-94 was moving normally. Then a solid wall of white rolled across the highway. Drivers described instant blindness as visibility collapsed from miles to just a few meters. Beneath that curtain of snow, a thin, transparent layer of black ice had already formed, waiting for the first vehicle to lose control. One passenger car, traveling too fast for the sudden conditions, hit the ice, spun across the lanes and struck the median. The drivers behind never saw the crash until it was too late. A semi-truck slammed into the wrecked car, another truck hit from behind, and more vehicles piled into the growing mass of twisted metal. Within moments, dozens of cars and trucks were involved. By the time the chain reaction ended, the main impact zone on I-94 included more than a dozen passenger vehicles and several semis, plus dozens of additional vehicles that slid off the road or into guardrails trying to avoid the wreck. Some cars were crushed under trailers, others bent in half, and some were quickly buried by drifting snow, making them hard for rescuers to locate. First responders struggled just to move through the storm. Medics and firefighters advanced on foot in thigh-deep snow, using the sound of horns and voices to find trapped drivers. They broke windows, cut open doors, and pulled people out into howling wind and sub-freezing temperatures. One 71-year-old truck driver from Illinois died after being critically injured in the first impact. Another driver was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The human stories behind the crash were painful and complex. Newlyweds Jessica and Brian Lee were trapped when their small sedan was forced beneath a flatbed trailer, pinning them in a pocket of twisted steel. Rescuers worked for nearly an hour with hydraulic tools to reach them, talking to the couple through small openings while snow blew into the wreck. Both suffered serious injuries and were placed in induced comas after emergency surgery. In total, I-94 remained closed for more than 12 hours as crews cleared wreckage, treated the injured, and tried to prevent more crashes in the blizzard conditions. For thousands of stranded travelers, it was a harsh reminder that a normal afternoon drive can turn into a fight for survival in just a few seconds of whiteout and ice. Investigators in both states pointed to the same combination of factors: sudden whiteouts, invisible black ice, and speeds that were normal for clear weather but far too fast for conditions that changed without warning. All-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, and heavy vehicles offered little protection once traction was lost. On glassy pavement, even the most experienced drivers had almost no control. Officials are using these crashes as a warning for the rest of the winter. When snow starts falling and visibility drops, speed has to drop with it. Drivers are urged to increase following distances, treat bridges and shaded areas as potential black ice zones, and check road conditions before traveling. On winter roads, physics decides what happens next, and no vehicle can beat slick ice and zero visibility.